there's something else worth mentioning. If you can see, when I ran my fingers across that, you can see the marks from my fingers. Now, it's not such a big deal because I'm going to end up, I was kind of foolish thinking I wasn't going to sand this, because you get these little points sticking up every time a fiber frays from the cloth. And those are just kind of like uncomfortable points that could even cut you if you skid your foot across there or something like that. But when I smoothed that resin out, that was just a stupid thing to do, because now I can see my finger marks in here. If you can see that, I don't know. Also, when I put the second section of fiberglass in, the second batch, which went from about here and to here, you can see it's not as thick, because again I was getting cheap on it, and now I have that section, it's too thin here, right here, as opposed to right there. So now I'm going to end up going over it again. Again, wasted time because I'm trying to shortcut. The end result is still going to be fine, but I think the best thing I could say is get a nice layer of resin on there. If you waste a batch or make another batch, it's still gonna, you're still gonna be better off than trying to stretch a batch out. Just don't bother doing it. Keep it on there nice and thick, and make sure you get even coverage. Once you brush it on, you start to gel, just leave it alone. If you think it's too thick, just leave it alone. It's easier to sand it down than to mix more resin, prep the surface for another batch of resin by sanding it, mix more resin, put the resin on, and then maybe still have to sand it anyways. Just go ahead and put it on thick, let it cure, sand it down if needed, but don't re-treat the surface after your initial application of the resin. Also, I wanted to show you how to get the used resin, the dried resin out of your container. Just flex it. The cracks are the fiberglass, the resin. It's not the container. At some point you'll get an edge, and then you could just kind of peel it out like that. Now, if you leave a thick section in here, in other words, if you don't brush all your excess resin out of the container, it's much easier to get out. If this was thicker, I would have gotten it out with, just with one, by pulling one end of it and getting it out. Now I have to go in here and kind of get all these little pieces out. It's just more difficult. So there's another lesson learned.